Hey guys, meteorologist Lindsey Slater here. Let's do a little talking about Aurora stuff. I didn't make a video yesterday because, quite frankly, I don't want to get anyone too excited about Aurora, especially in southeast Wisconsin. While we did have a lot of indications that, yes, we had a big blob coming in out of the sun, a big blob of plasma came out of the sun a few days ago. And that is a good indication that we have what we call a CME, a coronal mass ejection. It's not always earth directed. There's a lot of things it has to do to get here. It has to be in combination with solar wind. It could speed up, it could slow down, it could hit certain points of the atmosphere or of space rather. We have a space weather station basically that's called L1, and it's basically in between earth and the sun. If it hits that, we have more data, but that's the only data we have. So predicting timing and whether or not it's going to be this far south is something that is almost impossible to do. So I don't like getting people too excited. I was watching it through the day. I was talking on a Discord channel with all the folks regarding Aurora. It did look like there was going to be like a very small window of opportunity yesterday, but the BZ component, so the orientation of this plasma plume kept flipping. And when you have a northward orientation of that flux that comes out, it's not as likely to see vibrant, bright, storming aurora. Remember, aurora is only happening because of that coronal mass ejection basically interacting with Earth's magnetic field. It happens in the poles because the magnetic field lines go right into the poles. So that's where you're going to get most of the activity. Over time, if you get a big storm, it's going to help to move those and vibrate those magnetic fields and have it cheat down closer to the mid latitudes, which is why it becomes tough. Can it do that? Is it strong enough for that to happen? These are the big questions. So we did reach G2 level storming yesterday, and it did actually appear in Wisconsin, mainly Madison. Did see some auroras. I'm not sure if that was with a long exposure camera or not. Plymouth, Wisconsin, we did get a picture out of that. The window was like 9 to 10 p.m. I was definitely far asleep at that point, but I do want to talk about it tonight. With that being said, once we get a CME that hits, you can get about 24 to 30 hours of storming. So it hit yesterday at about 3 p.m. So yes, we could get it again tonight. It's not as likely, I don't feel, especially with the orientation of the is more of a north orientation. We get good storming if it's a southward orientation. And that's what you want. If you want good aurora, you want a southward orientation. And we briefly had this southward orientation yesterday. And actually I can show you that right here. This is a bunch of stuff. I know what you're seeing. But you see this density line right here. That's the orange line. Density picked up when the CME hit Earth. It hit Earth around 21Z, which is about 3 p.m. our time. And you can see the speed it went from 400 to about 648 kilometers a second. That's the CME arriving, and the temperature just spiked right there. That's a good indication. Plus BT, which is this white line here, that basically talks about the storm disturbance index. It basically is saying, wow, we have lots of storming going on. So I want you to pay attention to this BZ line, which is this red line. You see that here? There was a brief moment right around, I believe, right here. This was about 3Z. So we did have some storming. This is what I was awake for. This was in Finland. We weren't dark yet. This is 0Z. This is about 6 p.m. Yeah, they got some aurora there. And then it went back north. You see this? So this white line in between, it went back north. So we weren't getting that much storming. We weren't getting the orientation we need to see aurora vibrant around here. Then for about an hour right there, it goes back to south. I mean, it got to about minus 14, which is, you kind of want minus 20, minus 30 for some decent storming. But yeah, it definitely went south for about an hour, not even like 45 minutes, and then right back up north. So that was the window, the 9 p.m. window that you could have seen that. Anything after that, it flipped back north, wasn't going to be happening much of the rest of the evening. But that's what I'm talking about, how close it is, how precise that is. You can't predict that. It's just a little bit too flip floppy. And if you notice earlier in the day, it was north, south, north, south, north, south. It was a lot. So I'm actually trying to go underneath here. Oops, I want to keep that. So that was the key messages. It was a G2 level storm. There could be some G3 level storming happening here tonight. Oopsies, went to the wrong place. Sorry about that. There could be some G3 level storming. You can see that is what's being predicted right now for later on this evening. I'm not as impressed with it, mainly because I just don't feel like, especially with us having clouds, it's going to be helpful for us. So I'll keep an eye on it. I watch the Discord channels quite a bit. We had that little uptick right there. You see that? And then the K index went down. Basically, that's just talking about the level of storming, how disturbed the magnetic field lines are. X-ray flux was a little disturbed yesterday as well. I have all my tabs underneath this camera, so I keep trying to find it. Um, the sun is very active right now. There is, I mean, look at 171 angstroms. Look at these flares, beautiful arcades going on right now. We can actually see the flares best in 131 angstroms. This is our solar flare, and you can see how beautiful and bright these pieces come off right here. We have some of that beautiful arcades coming in from the sun as well. 195 angstroms show us really good coronal holes, which you can see right there. I just realized I was covering all that up. Sorry. And yeah, so we have a very active sun, and there's a big filament right here toward the bottom, which it's Earth directed, and it's the polarity is in the correct spot for us to have an Earth impact. So I'm going to keep an eye on this guy right here. We could see that maybe lift off, maybe over the next day or two. Yeah, lots of flaring. We got some prominences lifting off right here. That's a filament. That's a prominence. Basically, they're the same thing. It's just if they come off. Ooh, that was a good one. Watch right here. You're going to notice it popping right there. Very active regions around the sun on the backside of the sun. So I still think we'll get some flaring going on. Remember, solar flares are not CMEs. Flares basically give you radio blackouts, which is what this shows. And it's basically immediate. CMEs, when they launch, they take about 2 to 3 days to get here. You can get solar energetic particle events, which is when you have issues with radiation. So there's different levels of this. So yes, the solar flares radio blackout right now is right over the Atlantic Ocean. Pacific's over here. Sorry. And yeah, that's all I'm noticing with all of that proton flux. So we're not looking at any kind of radiation issues out of that. Electrons are below thresholds. We did get some nice K indices, like I mentioned. At the time, Lindsey was asleep. Yep, that is when we had that little tiny flare. So yes, our map is very active. There's that coronal hole I was just talking about. So yeah, lots of active regions on the solar map here. And I'm going to take a look here. I wonder if there was another launch. This is a look at Enlil, which is a solar wind prediction. And you can see right there, there is a little blob this was the one that we got right there. This was the solar CME that launched on the 30th. Watch this. I'm actually kind of excited to show you this. So there's 1 and 2, and they basically caught up to each other, and they hit us right there at about 0Z. So we got that impact, and we got the storming as a result of that. That's what we're looking for. So timing that out is really, really tough. So that's what we're referring to when we talk about that. So all right, that is my latest update for you guys. If I have any more information on this, I will be posting throughout the day. I just don't feel like we have a big opportunity with the orientation. You saw how it was more northern. I do think that we have more of a chance for Aurora when we don't have clouds, obviously. So again, I'm tracking it for you. I'll update if we need it, but otherwise you have a little lesson on what you can expect.